Hello everybody, it's Kate here for today's Spotfire session, and today we're going to be talking about public shaming, and this is something that I think is incredibly important to be mindful of, because I think that it can trigger a lot of conflict in the workplace. And I don't think that we always intend to do it, but sometimes we can accidentally shame people, and when we do, we can find ourselves in a difficult situation where a person may react badly to being shamed publicly, being exposed, being embarrassed, and that they often react to that. So I think there are a lot of different ways in which public shaming can happen, and I'm going to go through a few of them today. I think that we've experienced a very clear example of public shaming in the last few days with respect to the egging of Fraser Anning. And I'm not going to tell you that it's okay to egg people, because I don't think that's right either. But it's obvious to me that Fraser Anning in that moment was very embarrassed by a young person egging him in front of his peers at a rally where he was a guest speaker, and he has been made to look like a fool because somebody has egged him, and then he has reacted in a very strong and violent manner, which again is not okay, but you can see what was going on there, that he's reacting to that situation. I also dealt with a person recently who had resigned from her employment, and she resigned for a number of different reasons, but partly because she didn't feel valued and appreciated by the employer. And she had given notice, and so she was going to the weekly toolbox meeting, or whatever they called it, and she sat down at the meeting, and just as everybody then had sat down, when everybody was settled, the boss then said to her, gave her name and just said, "Look, you're not required at this meeting today," and she left. Now, that is a conversation that could have happened well prior to that meeting and ended up being incredibly embarrassing for her, and didn't go any way to improving their relationship on her way out the door. So we need to be really mindful of that. I think one of the things that we do often is that we call out behaviour when people are in public, and it could be at a meeting or it could be somewhere else. And if we don't like someone's behaviour and we call it, it depends on the way in which we call it to whether or not it's public shaming. So if somebody's sitting in a meeting and they've made a mistake or they've made an error and it's created some additional work or cost or whatever for the organisation or the business, to remonstrate that person and tell them off in front of everybody else in a public meeting is a really inappropriate and cruel thing to do. It's not okay. That is a conversation that's had behind closed doors, and ultimately that person can stand up and take responsibility for that, and they can work through a whole range of different things. But it's much better to come to a meeting and go, "Look, we appreciate that this has happened, and this is some of the steps that this person's taken to resolve this issue," rather than in front of everybody for the very first time saying, "Oh, and by the way, did you know that this happened and it's going to cost us a fortune?" So there needs to be some thought that goes into the way in which we deal with mistakes and problems when they arise. So rather than calling it out in front of everybody, it's really important to look for ways in which you can have those conversations in a private way, so that you can give somebody some really good feedback, and then you can start strategizing about how you're going to deal with that with everybody else. And I think that's really important. If somebody's talking on the phone, or is, if you're in a meeting and not so much talking on the phone, but they're texting somebody, or they're sighing, or they're raising their eyes to the heavens, or whatever during a meeting, and their behaviour suggests that they're unhappy, then I think that it's really important to call out that behaviour there and then. But the way in which I would do that in that instance is just to say to somebody, "Are you okay? Because you don't seem like you're very happy in this instance, or is something else going on because you seem distracted?" And you give that opportunity for that person to give you some feedback to what's going on, because chances are they either don't want to be there because they think it's a waste of time, they don't agree with what you're saying, but they haven't yet worked out how to say it, and so they might be passive aggressively sighing or doing something else, or there might actually be a crisis that they're dealing with, and they're trying to please two masters, and they're in the meeting, but they actually need to go and deal with something else. So give them space to go and do that if need be. So call out inappropriate behaviour at the time in a caring, thoughtful manner that doesn't embarrass the person. But if you do have to raise a significant issue that could potentially embarrass this person or demonstrates that there's been an error, a very significant error made or whatever, then that's a private conversation outside of that room, and you strategize, and then you come to the meeting room together and you've got a plan and you know how you're going to deal with it. The other thing that I often see happening is where people are feeling that that the people are getting preferred treatment in the workplace, or something else is going on, and they want to impress managers and the like, and so they embarrass a peer to make themselves look good. Now, often what happens when you do that is you end up making yourself look bad, and the person you're trying to impress is probably not impressed. But you need to also be mindful that you don't end up embarrassing somebody in front of a manager, because that is not a good look for you, and potentially it's setting you up to have a really bad relationship with a person that you work closely with. If a manager embarrasses one person in front of the team, yells at them, I mean, I've seen this in public. I have been in a very public building in Melbourne and seen a manager just ripping shreds off a cleaner in the front foyer in front of everybody. And the manager just looked terrible. Like, this person had no credibility, because this guy is quietly responding to the questions and things, statements that are being put to him, and this woman was tearing shreds off him, and it was an incredibly bad look. And I felt embarrassed for him, because he obviously didn't want to be there, and it wasn't an appropriate place or time to have this conversation. And it made it look as though the person who was yelling at him truly did not have very good management skills whatsoever. So I think it reflected very badly on her. But I do see this on quite a regular basis. People paying out, attacking individuals for their work, publicly yelling, screaming, jumping up and down, all of that behaviour, not okay. It looks bad for them, truly embarrasses the other one, and your chances of loyalty and people wanting to do the right thing after that is minimal. Fear is not a great motivator to get people to do good work. Fear will get people to respond in the first instance, but after that, why would they want to stay? Why would you hang around? So unless, if you look at what motivates people to work, it's play, purpose, and potential. So it's being able to do the things that you love and to contribute using your skills. It's purpose because you believe passionately about what you're doing, and so you want to be there because it aligns with your values. Or it's potential because you can see that this is a stepping stone to somewhere where you want to be. So that's a great way of getting people to engage. But the indirect motivators for work are fear, money, and you've just always done it this way. And so if we're talking about fear and being embarrassed, well, that's not a strong motivator in the long run. That you have no connection with that you don't want to be there. Your resentment will build up. It's not a fun work environment, so why would you do it? Money is really not a very strong motivator at all for work. I know that many people think that money is going to be the key and will get people to be focused and to perform, but all this research shows that that's just not true. There goes the dogs. And so money is an indirect motivator. It's not a direct motivator. Thank you, Doug. And finally, sometimes people are like robots. Like, this is what I've always done. We just get up. They don't want to be there. They're just robotic. You don't want employees that are there because they're out of fear, money, or they're being robots just performing a job. You want people there because they want to do the job. They want to be there. They want to use their skills. So embarrassing people is not going to, by any stretch of the imagination, get the best work out of anybody. So that is not a good motivator. Embarrassing people will not work. The other way in which I see a lot of public shaming is through email. Now, email would have to be one of the worst communication tools ever. It is a very good tool for sharing information, but it is not an effective communication tool at all. And email ends up being a very good tool for publicly shaming people. So I know through experience, and I've also seen it quite often, where someone makes a mistake, you send an email saying, "Dear so-and-so, dear Bob, you made this mistake on this day, you did this, and this." And you don't just send it to Bob, but you send it to your manager and the manager above them, and you CC all these people into it just to make sure that Bob knows that he made a mistake. And Bob gets embarrassed, and Bob's embarrassed because he's been publicly shamed in front of management, and all of a sudden Bob is likely to, one, feel incredibly resentful, two, go into justification mode so quickly it's not funny, and start attacking and blaming and all the things that go with public shaming. If any part of that email is wrong, the information's wrong, then there'll be these long, fast, furious emails back. "This is what happened, and it didn't happen like this, and you've got it all wrong." And suddenly you've created this firestorm with all these emails going backwards and forwards as people try and demonstrate who's right, or who's more right, and who's wrong, and all of those things. And it's all because Bob has been shamed in front of senior management. It is completely unreasonable to shame people in that way. If Bob's made a mistake, then it's important that you have a conversation with Bob. You ring him up, you Skype him, you do whatever you need to do, but you have a conversation. And then once again, you work out the strategy about how you're going to deal with that. And then if you need to tell senior management about it, you can say, "This is what happened. Bob is aware of this. These are the strategies and steps that we're going to take to manage this. And it's all sorted. And thank you, Bob, for being so helpful in sorting out this problem. I'm sure that you didn't mean to make that mistake." And that way you protect Bob's integrity and well-being, and you look after Bob. And at the same time, you are very much making sure that you're meeting all of your managerial responsibilities in making sure that management knows what's happened and how the issue's been addressed. But to attack people in the first instance and CCing management is just not okay. It's just not an appropriate use of resources. And I see it happen all the time, and it builds enormous resentment. And if people then feel like they don't care anymore, then you can understand why. Their whole overall response to that situation is one of, "Well, they don't care about me, so why should I care about them?" And that happens all the time. So don't use email to have what should be a conversation in person. And if you're scared to have a conversation in person with somebody, if you don't know how to address that issue with them, then I'm happy to provide some training. But realistically, I'm confident that Bob would much rather have a conversation. You close the door, you take Bob aside, you close the door, you do it in private, you say, "Bob, are you aware that this happened on this day?" And Bob will go, "Oh my God, did that happen? I'm so sorry." And Bob will look to fix it. But as soon as you publicly shame Bob by saying, "Bob, everybody now knows that you on this day you completely stuffed up, and this is what it's cost us," and all of that, you've lost Bob. Completely lost Bob. The message is really simple. Look after people. If you look after people, then they'll want to look after you, that they'll be respectful. If they feel respected, they're going to be respectful back. But if you feel like you've just been thrown under a bus, then chances are that your response will be, equally damaging and controlling. And the other thing that I want to just say with respect to email, actually I could go on about email a lot. I've done so many mediations, workplace mediations over the years, where really the whole issue came down to email and about how people were spoken to via email, or how somebody signed off on email. Email is such a terrible, terrible communication tool. But when we're talking about email, the use of BCC is not a management tool. It is called micromanaging people, and micromanaging people is demonstrating your fear that person, your fear that you have to be successful, and a lack of trust in everybody, and BCCing people and for them not to know who's read that email, I consider to be particularly unfair treatment. It's just not okay. I don't support BCCing people at all. We will talk about micromanaging in greater detail on another day, but I do find that BCCing people in it often goes with micromanaging. Is this secretive way of finding out what's going on and how people are responding to things. Not okay by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just looking at my notes. So they're the main things. Socially, what I see often is I've seen couples where they argue constantly, or they put one down in front of the other in a social setting, and it makes everybody else around them feel incredibly uncomfortable. And it's meant to be witty, and it's meant to be having a laugh at somebody else's expense. It's just uncomfortable and rude and not okay, and I don't go for it at all. I think when it comes to public shaming is that if you are going to tell somebody off, you do it privately. And every single time you do it in front of an audience, and whether that audience is one person or many, as soon as you have told somebody off in public, you have potentially shamed them, and they will feel very embarrassed, and their response to the embarrassment is going to differ from person to person, but it will usually be negative. It will usually be a lashing out or a blaming or attacking somebody in some way, because immediately the heat comes up. The response is, oh my God, I'm now so ashamed because you've now thrown me under a bus in front of this person, and you will just be looking to push all of that energy away. It wasn't me, and it's somebody else's fault. I didn't do it. I don't want to take responsibility for it. It's too painful. This is too hard to manage. So I think that the main thing is to consider about how you address issues when they arise. Do not do it in a public meeting. Do not do it by email. Be respectful. Look after the person. If you just say to somebody, are you okay? Because I noticed that this happened the other day. Are you aware that this happened? And then they'll go, oh my God, because most people don't mean to make mistakes, and they sometimes don't even know that they've made it because they've just done something in the usual process, and then they've overlooked something accidentally or whatever. So give people an opportunity to fix their mistakes because they want to. If people are motivated by play, potential and purpose, then they'll want to fix the mistake. But if they're motivated by fear, then it will just be another nail in the coffin of that relationship that you've got. They just, it'll be, oh, I've done it again. Yeah, I'm a loser. Yeah, I know. Why do you employ me? Why do you pay me? I don't want to be here. So you will have a negative relationship with people if you do focus on publicly shaming them, because you won't end up with anything else. I'm just going to see if there's any questions. There's no questions per se. There's a few people who have commented who like this, so that's good. So if there's anything that you would, if I can help anybody with any training with respect to this, I'm more than happy to do that. I have my Teams That Thrive program, which is an online program, but also I go out and I work with leaders and teams to help them have conversations about what does respect look like. And this is one of those things about what does respect look like. And respect looks like people looking after each other and being mindful about other people's feelings when they have a conversation that might embarrass somebody. That's what I think respect is all about, looking after other people and being mindful of their needs. So if anybody needs any help with that, please let me know. But be careful about where you raise issues. Meetings and in front of other peers, not a good look, not a good feel. All right, well, look, that's all from me today. This will be available as well on my YouTube channel if you're interested in knowing more. If you know somebody who needs to watch this video, feel free to share it around. I'm more than happy with that. And I hope you have a really good week. I'm off to Melbourne today to run some Teams That Thrive workshops in Melbourne for the next few days. So that's going to be really good fun. And so So I get around, and I'm happy to help anybody who needs some help with making sure that they've got a respectful, caring, thoughtful workplace, working on their culture. All right, have a good one. Catch you later all. See ya.